So last night as I was falling asleep on the couch, Bill Maher was on in the background. He was talking about Christians who have left fake $10 bills with the words, "Some things are better than money," and then some religious text following it. They were acting as if such a tip would cause a server to find God. Additionally, he discussed an image where a Christian wrote something like, "I give 10% to the Lord, why should I give you 18%?" The list of ways that so-called Christians have used their religion as an excuse to not tip goes on, and the next day the fake money tip came up on my Tumblr feed. Let me just preface what I'm going to say by saying that, unlike other non-religious people, I don't hate Christians. I hate when some Christians twist the messages of the Bible and use them as an excuse to oppress people. But I don't hate Christians who use the Bible's teaching to be a better person. My mother is a devout Christian who puts everybody else before herself. She donates her time and energy to charity and helping her friends and family. She's almost giving to a fault. I respect her in that she doesn't use her faith to harm others. She's more of a live and let live type person. Now, the people who are doing this are not Christians. Not really. These are people who sift through the Bible, picking and choosing which passages suit their selfish needs, which passages allow them to hurt others. These are the people who breed hate instead of love. These are the types of Christians who make decent Christians look bad. The glaring hypocrisy here is that they're blatantly ignoring "thou shalt not steal." I need to let those of you who have the good fortune to never have to wait tables in on a little secret. Servers live off their tips. Servers on average make under $3 an hour before tips. Their minimum wage has not increased with the cost of living in at least a decade. If servers didn't make tips, they wouldn't be able to survive off the income. The government and restaurant owners justify their wage due to the fact that tipping is the norm. And unfortunately for servers, when it comes across as optional, it absolutely is not. Yet there's nothing they can do to enforce that. Additionally, servers are being taxed based off the food you purchase. A percentage is automatically taken off that $3 an hour wage based upon what they should have received. So once a server gets their check, they're lucky if they have anything to cash. And the final reason why tipping should not be considered optional is in many restaurants they employ bussers, bartenders, hosts, and other positions who are paid minimum wage, but who automatically get a tip percentage, again based on what the server should have earned in tips. I'd say this amount averages at about 10 to 15%. So when you don't tip a server, you're not just stealing their time, you're making them pay to serve you. If you can't understand why this is all kinds of wrong, you need to go into the industry for a few months to see what it's like to live like that. Tipping should not be an option. When you get your bill, you're paying for the food, the cooks, the management, and the minimum wage staff. When you tip, you're paying for the service. Imagine going into a mechanic, having them fix your car, and then refusing to pay for anything but the parts. You would never do that. You couldn't get away with it. You'd be arrested for stealing. Unfortunately, there are enough people in this world who don't give the labor of servers the same respect. Now, these so-called Christians are acting like tipping is charity or something, rather than paying for services rendered. They're acting like the Word of God is going to pay someone's rent. Are you kidding me? How dare you call yourself a Christian if you steal from servers? How dare you ignore the passages which talk about the virtues of generosity and selflessness, and which condemn deceit? A Tumblr user pointed out, getting a server's hopes up that they're getting a real tip and then faking them out is deception. It's lying. It goes against the Word of God. And as for the false equivalence of, "I give 10% to the church, why should you get 18%? You're not giving the server 18% of your income, just 18% of the food you chose to order when you sought out the luxury of eating at a restaurant and made the unspoken agreement that you would tip at the end." This doesn't just go for Christians, of course. I'm just floored by the blatant hypocrisy. Anyone who doesn't tip should be ashamed of themselves. It's an unfortunate circumstance that a tip is not included in the bill, but that doesn't give you a reasonable excuse to not do it. Serving is hard work. It's being on your feet all day, running around, having to remember people's requests, balancing plates and dishes, having to touch disgusting leftover foods, being treated like dirt by many customers, and still be expected to be calm and pleasant while they put you through hell. Anyone who thinks they don't deserve a living wage is a classist scumbag. And before you try to counter with the "they can just quit and get another job if they don't like it" excuse, don't even try to pawn the responsibility to be a decent human being off on the victim. Don't try to pretend like we have this super economy where well-paying jobs are just begging for employees. Don't ignore the fact that there are people who are born with disadvantages, who don't have the same opportunities that others do, and who need to work demeaning jobs because they have little to no other options. They can't afford a college education. That the economy is so bad and so many good jobs have left the country that even those with college educations are finding themselves waiting tables. People have to eat. They have to make sacrifices to eat. If you're the type to shrug off the reality that there are people in this country who can't just quit because they will die of starvation and exposure when they run out of money and options, you can kindly take your just world fallacy following self and never comment on my videos. Please, if you call yourself a Christian or just consider yourself to be a decent person, tip your server. Don't make excuses. If you can't afford the tip, you can't afford the meal. Every time you sit at a server's table, you're taking a spot that someone else who does tip would have sat in. At the very least, if you're going to be so bold as to not tip, don't be a coward and passive-aggressively note your opposition on the bill for the server to see after you've left. Tell them up front. That way they can give you the appropriate service that comes with not paying them for their time.